Hello, I'm continuing my reviews on the Return of the Living Dead series with Return of the Living Dead, Rave to the Grave. Now, you might be noticing that I'm in a slightly different location right now. I'm actually in my bathroom right now, on the toilet. Now, the reason I'm doing this review on the toilet is because the movie I am reviewing is no different than the brown substance that is currently oozing out of my ass. Now, Return of the Living Dead, Rave to the Grave, or Rave to the Suck, which I think is a more apt title for this movie, is the fifth film in the Return of the Living Dead franchise. Now, this was released around the same time as Return of the Living Dead Necropolis. Both this and Necropolis were made-for-TV movies on the Sci-Fi channel, which aired on the Sci-Fi channel somewhere in 2005. Now, Rave to the Suck kinda picks up where Return of the Living Dead Necropolis left off, but at the same time it kinda doesn't, because this movie has a lot of the same characters who were in Necropolis, but the way the characters act in this movie, the way they act, it's almost as if the events in Necropolis never happened. Now, Necropolis was bad. It was nowhere near as bad as this movie, though. The thing about Necropolis is, as bad as that was, really the biggest problem with that movie is it was just bland and lifeless. This movie, on the other hand, has a lot more stuff to make fun of. Now, technically, this is a worse movie than Necropolis, but at the same time, though, because there's more stuff to make fun of in this movie, that actually makes this movie more entertaining than Necropolis. Now, personally, I think this is the worst in the franchise, but in a weird way, I would kinda recommend it even more than Necropolis, because at least in this movie, there's stuff to make fun of. Like, if you were with a bunch of your friends, you could, like, riff on this movie or something. With Necropolis, you really couldn't, because there really was nothing to Necropolis. Now, I do hate this movie. I think this movie's a piece of crap. But at the same time, though, it is more entertaining than Necropolis was. Now, the plot of Rave to the Suck is, it begins with Peter Coyote's character, who was the main villain of the previous film. He's selling this canister filled with the chemical, which in this movie is called Trioxin 5, even though in the first three Return of the Living Dead movies, the chemical was called 2,4,5-trioxin, but he's selling this chemical to these agents who, I think they work for, like, the Russian government or something, and he's selling it to them, and what happens is they test it out on these dead bodies, and the dead bodies come back as zombies, and one thing leads to another, and Peter Coyote's character ends up getting killed. So then the movie starts following the nephew of Peter Coyote's character, Julian, who was the main character of the previous film, and he finds out that his uncle died, and he's a little bummed out by this, even though his uncle was the villain of the previous film, and his uncle wasn't a good person. And you could play that off as, like, even though his uncle wasn't a good person, you could still play it off as he's bummed out about it because his uncle was still family. But the thing is, though, eventually he finds these canisters in the attic of his uncle's house, and he's like, oh, I wonder what's in these canisters, and it's like, shouldn't you already know that? After all, you battled these zombies in the previous film. But the character of Julian, he acts as if none of the events in the previous film happened. So it seems like even though this movie has a lot of the same characters from the previous film, it seems like this one is ignoring the continuity of part 4. So Julian ends up taking one of these canisters to a friend of his who is like a chemistry major or something, and this friend determines that some of the chemicals that are in the canister have like drug-like effects, and one of their friends who's a drug addict stupidly ends up taking a piece of this chemical and eating it, and he trips out and shit, and then they're like, "This is awesome! Let's sell these as drugs!" And they start putting them in pills and shit and start selling them, and it's like, how fucking stupid are these characters? You don't just take some random-ass chemical that you really don't know what it is and start selling it as a drug. Like, how fucking... Like, that's how freaking mind-numbingly stupid these characters are. These characters are so stupid that they deserved what they got. They fucking deserve to become zombies, and lo and behold, that's what happens. Everybody that they sell these drugs to, when they take the drugs, they end up turning into freaking zombies. Wow, I didn't see that coming. But yeah, Return of the Living Dead Rave to the sucks. Like, this is a bad fucking movie. But it is almost entertainingly bad, but to be honest though, I don't think I'm ever gonna watch this freaking movie again. I saw this movie like twice. I saw it once a few months ago, and then I rewatched it so I could do this review, and honestly though, I don't know if I'm ever gonna freaking watch this movie again, nor am I ever gonna watch Necropolis ever again. If you want to check out a Return of the Living Dead movie, check out the first 3. Even though the second one wasn't that good, it's still miles better than this or Necropolis. Like, if you want a good Return of the Living Dead movie, watch the original or watch Return of the Living Dead 3. Like, those are the 2 best in this franchise, in my opinion. But this movie and Necropolis fucking suck. Like, really the only way I would recommend this movie is if you're with a bunch of your friends and you want to, like, riff on the movie or something. And believe me, it's a movie that there's a lot to make fun of, so really that's the only way I would really recommend this movie. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is something I forgot to mention in my review on Necropolis, but this movie and Necropolis were both shot in Europe, yet the movies are supposed to take place in America, yet when you watch the movies, you can clearly tell, you can clearly see some European architecture, and a lot of the actors in these movies are clearly European actors trying to put on an American accent, and it really doesn't work. Like the movie was shot in, I believe, Ukraine and Romania, but they're trying to pass it off like this is set in an American town when it's clearly not. So yeah, I really don't recommend Rave to the Suck unless you're with a bunch of your friends and you want to like riff on the movie or something. But now I'm going to flush this shit down the toilet. And I'm gonna make like Pontius Pilate and wash my hands of this movie. See you later.